I'm the Curmudgeon. Welcome to the Cellar. Tonight I have my great friend, Jim Wampler, covering my back for me.
Fully sidekick, Batman. I'm Curmudgeon Jr.
Well, I don't know. I haven't promoted you that high yet. Before we get going any further, we thank our sponsors. Old Guard Games, World of Game Design, Dice Fanatics, Myth Horde, Bards of Greyhawk, who are still supposedly working on that theme song that we're going to use at the end of this when it's all done. And, of course, my video best fan video services who tax this together for me, and soon we'll have a chance to make a better one. Jim's here tonight for several interesting reasons. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. First off,
nothing better to do at midnight on Friday.
Yeah. What could be better than hanging with the Curmudgeon in his cellar? Come on. The contest, Benny Two Spells.
Oh, yes.
His infamous character. All of you that sent in answers, do it again. Sorry. I lost part of the file.
Oh.
And I was trying to keep them collected, and I'm not going back and look through all those comments again. I'm sorry. I'm lazy.
That's a good thing, because that gives me additional time to scour through my external storage drives and try and remember how I wrote that 7 years ago, what the two spells are. I don't remember.
Because you've been waiting longer, though. We've upped the ante, so to speak. The prize package is getting awesome. A copy of Doom. The complete set of South Park Season 12. A mint set of Lord of the Rings. The Click. All right, never been taken out of the box and played with. And this, and some dice, of course. I got a dice sponsor. And this, perhaps the ugliest Crown Royal bag ever made, but it holds dice.
Just a couple inches on the color gamut, and that would be Tennessee Volunteer Green, but it's really kind of brown.
It's pretty ugly. But that's the prize package. All right. Remember the deal. 25 words or less. 2 spells. Irrevocably dead.
And I swear to God, once upon a time, I knew what those 2 spells were. I had it all worked out and then never got to it in the story.
Well, we're going to see if you can come up with either a combination that he recognizes and says, oh, yes, that's it. Or he's going to find it on his external hard drive.
Or best entry.
And then, right, best entry. And, of course, if you hit right on what he wrote, you win automatically. So that's the 2 spells. Sorry for the delay.
Those are pretty good prizes. I still have a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive at home. Can I enter?
Sure.
No, I shouldn't be allowed to enter.
It's a Doom. Everybody loves Doom. Doom. Oh, yeah, that's the one that had the Barney mod. Before we knew they're mods, they were hacks. If you went into Doom and you ran this side program, you could turn all the monsters on the 3rd levels into Barney. And then, of course, you gave yourself unlimited ammo and unlimited lives.
Those were good days, and nobody under 40 knows what we're talking about. There was a Doctor Who mod, and the all-time champ was the Simpsons mod. Oh,
well, there you go.
Doom with Homer Simpson.
Now, I just like blowing up Barney. I escaped Barney. Neither of my children were in that age demographic. Okay, here we go. We'll answer a couple of questions, and then we got some neat stuff. And he's got something really neat.
I'm glad you can read that in this light.
Well, that's when I write it, print it in 14-point Georgia, so I can read it. All right. I run a public game each week, and I notice that younger players tend to play evil. It's something I find fascinating because my groups in my teen and young adult years were almost entirely heroic. To be clear, I'm not speaking of alignment. I'm referring to the actions of the players. Obviously, this is completely anecdotal, but as someone who has run games since the beginning, thank you very much for noticing, have you noticed a change in the choices players make?
May I?
Go for it. We're in a tag team.
That is a phenomenon that has never changed in 40 years because it's my favorite thing about having youngsters at my table. I like running all age tables, and when the 12 and 14-year-olds show up, I know that automatically I don't have to teach them how to be a murder hobo. It just comes naturally at that age.
That's a good point, and because I've had youngsters at the table in that lower age range, and RPGs are about getting away with stuff that you can't do in real life. Now, I'm not
getting over on the DM.
Well, but it's also about getting away. Just teenage angst is a big part of teenage angst is getting away with stuff, from stuff, to stuff. Okay, think about it. If you can remember back that far, it's real hard for me. But I'm not surprised. I've seen the younger players do it. For about 3 weeks, my whole group in Carbondale was, I don't know what, the stars were out of alignment or whatever. They ran amok in ways they'd never done before. But then somebody came to their senses, or I punished them or something. I don't know. If the Curmudgeon was to answer this question, yeah, the youngsters don't have any limits. They don't know that, see, because their parents never smacked them. They just gave them a trophy for showing up every day. But that's only the Curmudgeon.
Okay, I'm out. I was going to come in with like the science of, D&D didn't invent this.
No.
Children often rehearse things.
Now go
through role play, like
you're on a roll.
Cowboys and Indians and playing doctor, so you can see what the other parts look like. It's the most natural thing in the world.
I understand that, right? But a Curmudgeon says, get off my lawn. So you get off my lawn. But
wow.
To go back when all of us first started playing, we saw it as a game of being heroic. Wow, we can go do hero stuff. Now the game is so pervasive through our culture that when a youngster decides to give it a shot and see what it is, they don't have the same narrow chute they're coming in from being heroic. They're coming in from a much broader spectrum of experience and experiencing this game the first time. So, I don't know. Now,
that's legit. I mean, what did we get? The occasional rack and bass special, of The Hobbit, where there's a whip, there's a way, and the movies Crawl, and a bunch of us hadn't read Tolkien before D&D from my age bracket. So,
we had some of you had
Wild West.
Well, and yet the comics were, for some people, they're coming from comics, and comics and D&D don't work the same. Now, I hear tell there's a game in work that it's going to be all about that kind of stuff. And a superhero game. That's a tough genre. I mean, like alignments in D&D work in D&D, but Gamma doesn't have alignments. Most RPGs don't have alignments. No, it's either understood or it's completely not a part of the design or the structure, right?
Well, I think it's important when it's important. Like that all comes from Tolkien and Moorcock, the laws, the forces of order versus the forces of chaos. That's where alignments come from. And in the superhero genre, it's a setting where you want to tamp down on the murder hobo. A little bit.
Well, and you mentioned alignment. If your players are being naughty, ding them on alignment. And when you start dinging them on alignment, stuff happens. They don't heal as fast. They don't hit as well. They get hit a little easier. All that was written into the game, and it's all there for you to use however you want to take it. But alignment is a good way to keep your players in a line. Keep them focused. I once had an incredibly scary encounter with a guy I'd never met before that night that was supposed to be playing a paladin that wanted to torture somebody to get information. And I literally had to stare it down over the table. I told you about that. That was in that game in Kansas City. and I finally, and he backed down because I threatened to destroy his alignment and ruin him. It's a good way to keep players, remind players every now and again that there are consequences even in game.
Unpopular opinion that I happen to hold, fully 75 or 80% of all players, their true alignment is chaotic neutral. Not the characters, the actual players.
After, God, how many years in this business? I can't argue that. Jesus, 44. I wish I hadn't counted. I really can't. Gary and I had a story. We laughed about that when he drew that weird chart of where the alignments are, and that that big thing. And we said that the chaotic neutral portion of that Venn diagram should be bigger because that's really where they were coming from. It's like, oh, let's see what kind of shit we can get away with. Okay.
What else you got on your list we can get in trouble with tonight?
Oh, no. They know that I occasionally say shit or damn, and we're good with that. Love watching it. For love of all that's holy, please get a better webcam.
Oh, it almost happened tonight, except my day job got the best of me. Better webcam coming.
Yeah, well, hey, I love this one. I've had it for a long time, but I don't understand why it gets blurry once in a while because I clean my disk before we start and everything. I have the computers running as smooth as I can. I also don't understand why occasionally on not every episode, but every once in a while it burps and repeats 3 or 4 words and the video that goes with it. So I don't know how that happens either. So maybe a better camera will fix it. We'll work on that. Or you can just send me a better camera.
Oh no, dude! $25 Logitech camera, you'll be fine.
Okay, Tim, you mentioned your original Carbondale D&D group. Have you ever done a reunion with those players? No.
Wouldn't that be sweet? I'm sure it's impossible.
Oh yeah,
but wouldn't that be sweet?
Oh yeah, it would be. And the worst thing would be how they're still alive. Granted, they're all except for Tom Wong, 3 or 4 years younger than me, but. I do know that one of them, Hogbait, became a state's attorney general for the state of Illinois. One of the old guys, a gentleman that still lives down in that part of the country, who I occasionally correspond with on a couple of chat sites, gave me a lead on somebody, and I don't remember if I reached out or he. Anyway, it never worked up to anything. It'd be interesting, yeah. Where'd we all end up? They knew where I was going. Of course, where I ended up wasn't exactly where I left for. It'd be fun, I guess. Okay, and figure out the D&D tree, like so-and-so played a dwarf, went on to, okay. Well, yeah, that'd be interesting, but at this point in time, I left down there in 75. They're 44 years. All those guys are 68, 70. Or like Tom Wong, 75. But, okay, I do XP for gold, but not down to every gold piece. Yes. They mostly earn the XP for general value of the treasure they get, especially if it's a hidden cache or something like that. I don't imagine Conan putting on his glasses and getting counting gold coins each time he looted treasure from a dungeon. I also award XP for discovering new places, lore, and things like that. I think you're doing it right. XP is becoming a better character, and all those things round out, flesh out, fill out the character. I think you're doing it right. But this is his last comment was, I think it's a way easier, and it doesn't turn the game into Conan the Accountant.
I'm good either way because if I'm playing a game where those aren't the rules, I'm fine. But it was super pleasant. And Matt Finch's recent Swords of Jodoba game, and he's handing out XP, and he starts counting up the gold and handing out XP. I'm like, ooh, I forgot about this. This is nice.
Well, and again, that all depends on how you structure your economy of your campaign. When my guys at Carbondale got a big haul. Inflation,
rents go up,
food goes up, beer goes up, company with female company in the town, it all went up, and they had to go back out and adventure again before they knew it because they got presented with those bills. Okay, now this is one that I posted today, a question on Facebook, which is kind of like throwing bread in the water and see what comes to eat it.
When you first told me about this, I'm like, oh my God, why would you ever do that?
Well, I did.
And then I read the answers.
And I did it to prove a point. Okay, a long-winded question for the curmudgeon. Seen a lot of people talk about how demi-humans in the pulp novels were portrayed as truly strange alien creatures. Now, how would you convey this to a player in your game? How would you set up those races so that they had an alien feeling as PCs, as opposed to being human who likes trees, human who likes to dig? I feel anything. All right, I should put my glasses on. I'm not vain. I just don't want to flash the lights at you. I feel like
we'll both do it. And with my hat, if we can just get you a beret, we'll be curmudgeon busters.
There we go. I feel anything I would try to do would be too prescriptive and would lead the players to thinking about the demi-humans had one personality and that there couldn't be any deviation from that. Another way I've seen this asked is, what goals do the demi-humans have that are completely non-human and therefore strange to us? Okay. My first admission is I went and looked up the textbook definition of demi. And
which I thought was Latin, but it's French from Latin.
Yes.
You tell me.
Yes, it was.
That's why I hang out with Tim, but so I learned stuff.
Well, that's why I edit his stuff, because he writes so well. He does. Yeah, we're going to talk about that later too. Okay.
Next episode, a warm shower.
On Facebook, I asked the
what's wrong?
Stupid trolling question: how do you define demi-human? And I dashed it, and I made it a compound word, and I parenthesized it, so we knew exactly that word, whichever way you spelled it.
Oh, see, now it makes sense. So you were intending to troll.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I threw the water out to see. I threw the bread on the water to see what came up, and
now I see the genius.
In 3 hours, I got 53 responses, 45 of which were absolutely unlike anything else that came in.
Shout out to my good buddy Jen Brinkman, who laid down the smack on correct answers.
Well, I spent way too much time pasting and copying this today, and I'm not going to name the people who said these. Well, that's okay. She's a friend, but and my policy is I don't name anybody, because that way, if I'm ranting about something, I don't want them to think it was them. I want them to figure it out.
So you want to be able to make fun of them, but not for them to take it personally.
Right, exactly. Now, here's one the first one that came in. Humanoid race spinoff. Definition 1. Here's a gamer. Humans with some fun change-ups. Well, demigod means half god. Demi-human may mean half human or having humanoid appearances, but clearly not human. It's getting confusing, isn't it? Something packaged.
Can we call out the name of the honest guy who just said a character class for power gamers?
Yeah. Something packaged in a human skin suit. Looks, smells, tastes like human, but brother ain't human. Here's one. This is a gamer. Fantasy races deemed playable plus half human offspring. Okay, we're starting to see some cynicism here. This guy right here aimed all the standard game definitions before people started having half things. There's Jen. Jen, you deserve to be called out. This is perfect.
I mean, I'm sorry I'm prejudiced and I love who I love. But
oh, well, I like her too. She's a great human being.
Respondent Jen Brinkman says, half human, game term, exclusively, not to be confused with subhuman, as used by Burroughs et al. So literary shout out in the definition. Plus she followed instructions and did it in 25 words or less.
12. It had to be 12
which this person clearly
did this
read or follow those instructions.
Oh, no. Here is a very profound one. An excuse to role play a different side of the human condition.
Oh, that's very Roddenberry-esque.
That's real deep, isn't it? Wow. Then we got this real long one that went way over the words and ended with, or so I'm told by the voice in my head anyway. Yeah, you got to love those. So you see where I'm going here. There's some great ones. Here, enjoy a few in bold. Yeah, put your glasses back on. We're old. Older. He's not nearly as old as me.
12 years between us. That's about the same between me and Zach.
Yeah.
Not human. Well, you're half right. Sorry.
No?
In my brain, it's gnomes, elves, and dwarves. Less so goblins, bugbears, and orcs, which I think of as goblinoids.
Okay. So now, just to stop here a second, now we've seen an opinion, and you have to understand that this will probably be shared by the people they play with, because that's how these opinions get formed that aren't straight 4 words out of the book. Now you've seen a different division of races or creatures or beings under demi-human. Okay, we whoa. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you already called out Doc Mindwipe, which is how I know him. I can't pronounce his actual name.
Yeah,
but I've gamed with that guy. Well, let's talk about what we were chatting about before we started recording, because what was really interesting is you couldn't believe you got like 50 some odd completely mostly different answers.
Yeah.
And that immediately sparked me to say that's the way these races were written in the fantasy literature before it was called fantasy literature, when it was just 30s and 40s pulp novels, and even earlier than that, the Burroughs stuff, where every individual author just their orc or their goblins or their bogarts and all whatever it was, whatever mythological name, they just made them whatever they wanted to make them for the purposes of their story. And Gary's role in honing that all in D&D, and now everybody references D&D. So it's a much narrower spectrum, you know, but in World of Warcraft and all these different games.
Well, yeah, they were smart enough not to try to embrace the whole world. We didn't know any better, so we figured we better shoot for everything and cover what we needed.
But so what's legit about everybody going their own way is that's the way the fantasy literature authors did it in the old days. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at H.G. Wells and his Morlocks. Mutant humans, but they made them a different race. You know, I mean, he way back. I mean, that's turn of the 20th century. He was dealing with degraded races. Now there are a couple here that I just gotta short people. I thought that was kind of mean. What's left after a bisection? Here's another gamer. Best of both worlds. There's a power gamer understands that. Why did everybody want to be a half orc? For the stamina, the strength. You know, I mean, best of both worlds. Any humanoids that are not intrinsically evil. That's a wide one. Here's one. Love this. Gamer mentality. Demi-humans equal playable, intelligent bipeds. Humanoids equal killable, intelligent bipeds. Means they're good for XPs. I love it.
Or cooked up over the campfire as far as my last group went. Gee. They were like cannibal murder hobos.
Here's one. Half, not whole. Another person that's kind of mean. Human-animal crossbreed. Too human to be considered just an animal. That's interesting. Similarly, here we go. Races similar to human that are farmed for experience points. I would like to play in that guy's campaign.
I love how Jungian this whole thing is, because of the archetypes in the collective unconscious. How human beings have this pre-programmed thing in their brain of the other. So we create these mythic figures, and now science has caught up where there's a point where, say 50,000 years ago, Homo sapiens shared the planet with 4 or 5 other hominid species at the same time. So Jung was right.
Yeah.
We're genetically programmed for this, and this is all part of the myth cycle, just living it out.
Now, the best answer, in my opinion,
sorry, I'm grinding your whole thing.
No, the last one. Something a troll or dragon pours a demi-glace on before smacking. I think that kind of,
because he was tasty and crunchy with ketchup.
That's why you never argue with him. That's right, because you are. And those are the questions. Now we're going to talk about some other stuff. First, I'm going to let Jim have the mic and talk to you and show you his proofs of his Kickstarter.
Oh yeah, I figured while I was here, I would just show off the printer proofs of my Kickstarter.
Hey, I'll be your Vanna White. I'll find a non-glaring position. There you go.
That's the actual book. I just ordered the print order today. see if I can do this while looking at the camera. Nicely and massively illustrated, and it looks skinny, but this little, so were the brown books. Except I'm not saying they're
no, but I read the manuscript. It's not skinny.
But in 60 pages, you get 30 artifacts you can use in a post-apocalyptic game, and a whole new AI deity with the full write-up and all the program spells.
I know. I had to have him explain some of it to me when I was editing it. It's cool as hell.
It's beefy, and this is the version most backers are going to get, and some backers wanted some hardback book they were willing to pay a lot of money for as a collector's edition, so we got that too. And thank you for letting me
well, it's a perfect segue because you were bragging on the art, and the art is glorious. I've seen it. And so let's talk about art. Fantasy art in particular.
I'm an artist. I went to art school. I can do that. And a gamer.
Well, there's a documentary that recently came out, and I'm only going to mention this because you said you went to art school. I didn't, and that's what pertains here. Anyway, the people that did the Art of the Dragon interviewed me for 3 or 4 hours on my back porch, and I'm in there a couple 3 minutes altogether. But one of the things that I had never really put my finger on, and that kind of shocked them, was they were looking for the source and the origins of what was fantasy art, and it was basically me, because I became the editor and I started soliciting art and stuff, and the Dragon, and Little Wars, and the last of the Strategic Review, and that kind of shocked them all. That I had no formal training, and I said, well, I put in what I like.
You worked at the student newspaper in college, so you got a little art directing in there.
Well, like I sold ads and made more money than the editors on my commission. I wrote editorials.
I get that because I did both at my college newspaper. I was the ad director 1 year and the editor.
I wrote editorials, but but anyway, back to the topic. I've noticed on Facebook over the last several weeks, through several of the role-playing sites, and they're all D&D or just generic. I don't friend any of the others because I don't understand them and don't need to. Been a lot of art thrown out there, and what do you think about this? Is this cover material? And all this art seems to have a common denominator, and that is it's static. There's nothing going on in it. And it's a spectacularly eye-catching female.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Okay, and I mean, not even, well, some of them are just defy gravity, and others are clad in clothing that's absolutely would kill them if they tried to wear that thing. And it just seems that all you're doing is showing that you can paint an extraordinary fantasy of what you think a female warrior elf or whatever ought to look like. And
you're talking about, pinup girl calendar art in a chainmail bikini masquerading as an adventure cover.
Yeah, but the other thing that I've noticed about these, not only do they have this prevalence of just being a scantily clad woman, none of them have any, there's no dynamic, there's no context. They're not doing anything except posing.
Well, yeah.
And anybody can draw, a naked fantasy just standing there posing. Show that naked fantasy fighting off three gargoyles with a spear, and now you might have something. If you put it in the context of being surprised out of her bed, not naked out in the middle of the woods fighting three bad guys.
Well, I'm a feminist, so before I get into all that, let me clean up my own house.
Okay.
How's that? Because I am writing this superhero RPG, and I grew up on 70s comics and reprints of 60s comics, and even as but what am I? I'm an old white male, and grew up when I grew up.
Gotta look at the camera.
Okay,
Took me 3 episodes to figure that out.
All right, coach. So I'm illustrating female superheroes, and my brain is default set for bare mid-dress and half naked and the guys are all in armor and long johns, and I have to catch myself and go, no, wait, that's not how it is in the Marvel movies. You know, the realistic combat wear that could survive, you know, energy blast and cosmic rays and Hulk punches and stuff. So even me, with the best of intentions and a feminist ideology, because I'm old and grew up when I grew up, I catch myself and have to police myself on this stuff.
Well, another thing that bothers me about this sudden flux, it seems so politically unaware that this isn't necessarily the time in our industry to be insensitive.
I think you mean tone deaf.
Tone deaf, thank you, yes. See, he gives me words too. Seriously, though, I think they're a little tone deaf. If you want to have a semi-naked woman fight somebody, then have them fight a semi-naked man and give everybody something to ogle. Guys painting guys doesn't say anything about their orientation. Women painting women doesn't say anything about their orientation. That has nothing to do with it. It's what you put into that piece of, on that board, that canvas, whatever. Go. Sorry, I got a little pontifical.
No, you just made me think of how in art school, first semester life drawing class, we had a female model, and I took to it like a duck to water. Second semester, we had a male model, and it took me the entire semester to break myself of Jack Kirby poisoning, because I'd grown up sketching Jack Kirby heroes, and that's not what the male model in front of me looked like. But that doesn't have anything to do with this. I'd argue that...
No, it does. It's an archetype, and you had to banish an archetype from your mind.
Right.
And I think they're being...
Well, that's what you go to art school to do, is learn to draw what you see, not what you think. But then later you can get to drawing what you think.
When you're successful.
Learn to do it right.
Yeah, when you're successful.
But this isn't a podcast or a YouTube video about art. I'd argue that...
Yes, it is. This part is.
What you were talking about is more a commercial concern than a political concern, because if you want to be published and successful in this industry, you've got to think in terms of who your audience is. Now, if I'm Larry Flint and I'm publishing skin rags, I know my audience, and I serve them accordingly. And I'm all about the First Amendment. Everybody's free to do whatever they want. First Amendment right to adult literature. But,
absolutely.
But that's not the market I work in. The market I work in, I want my adventures played at all ages tables. And even James Raggi and Lamentations of the Flame Princess, that's a separate market than the one I'm shooting for. So as a commercial concern, I don't want to do a presentation that potentially chops out 50% of my market.
Well, the other thing,
I mean, it helps that I actually think that way to begin with, but
well, and I think any commercially right thinking, because I'm absolutely obviously a First Amendment proponent, but I think that any right commercially thinking person is not going to look at, it's not going to touch something that's liable to be a stinker or create another furor. And if you guys, and it's all guys that are publishing these, unfortunately, at least earlier using guys' names, think about your market that you're going to sell it, not about painting your fantasy.
And maybe even not just the market you're directly selling this product to, but how you want to grow that market. Both as on the commercial side, I would like as many people as possible to buy my stuff. On the gamer side, because I'm a gamer before I'm a creator, I want my hobby to grow and explode and be appreciated by an ever wider audience. So why would I do anything that chops half that audience out?
Well, and the companies I'm involved with, they understand that. I think that maybe some of these artists just, maybe they've misread the market. Maybe they've ignored advice that they've gotten before, but I can't, it seemed like there's a flash of them on several different websites, and they all were somebody's fantasy of what a female player character would look like, I guess. And hey, fantasies are fine, but you don't put them on the front of the book you're trying to sell.
I mean, back to the First Amendment thing, and this is really messy 8-circle Venn diagram topic we're trying to talk about in a very simple way. But I mean, do what you want. I don't care. I'm just not interested myself in it. So
right. If
there I go. You got like maybe potentially half of your gender audience gone, and me too.
Well, and half of where I'm coming from is if you want to become better and you want to sell, you better look at your market closer. Back in my days with the Dragon, I was extremely fortunate. I got to give a lot of really good artists their first shot. And some of them went on to great things. Just about everybody that was, except Dave Sutherland, who was already there, everybody hired during the time I was there, I got them first.
And one of those was Darlene. And here's a point I want to make in as it relates to things like cosplay at the conventions. There's a difference between what we're talking about and how do I want to say this? When a young woman goes to a science fiction, comic book, or gaming convention and she makes the decision to dress up as Vampirilla, that's completely different from anything we're talking about, because that's a young woman doing what she wants to do to present herself.
Absolutely.
Actualizing her femininity or
absolutely. I'm not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's if you choose to.
That's an empowering thing.
Exactly. And if there's a lady out there that could pull off one of the pictures I was talking about in a costume, as a costume at a convention or something like that, yeah, okay, as long as we realize that's the only value that the other than eye candy that the drawing has. I just want to, you guys and women also, but I don't. I tread lightly. You got to look at your market, and you got to sell you got to paint what you think you can sell, not your fantasies. It's great to paint in your spare time. Wonderful, of course. I wouldn't tell you not to, but paint in your full time what you can sell. And cheesecake art is not selling very well right now. You're not going to sell it to any of the larger publishers that are going to make your name, as well as maybe a little cash in your pocket. So you aspiring artists, that's my advice.
It's a very complex topic, because if I were someone in the audience who enjoys doing this kind of stuff and why is this a good cover, I might, for example, immediately point to Frazetta and Vallejo art. Fantasy art, especially covering topics like John Carter Mars, where everybody's naked, men and women.
Yeah.
Well, what about that? Which is kind of like not all men,
Yeah, but that's apropos because he wrote the stories before the pictures were drawn.
Well, it's more than that. That's there's a gray area between commercial art and fine art and artistic merit.
Okay.
I mean, I have new charcoals at home that I did, but I don't put them on the cover of my, of this book.
Yeah, well, you'll sell it to 15 or 20, 17-year-old boys based on that.
Well, no, in a fine arts context, something like that could be up on a gallery wall.
Sure, certainly.
So it's a messy area.
Well, and I can remember almost, psychically crying and turning down a couple of pieces of art that were submitted as potential covers. They were amazing, astonishing pieces of work. There was nowhere I could use them. There was nothing that would. I couldn't find an article I could tie to it or anything like that. And Lord knows I tried a couple of sort of abstract covers and learned that didn't sell back then. It's all about just if you're a writer, if you're a drawer or a writer, know your market, know what you're likely to be able to sell. Now, when you become Frank Frazetta or Boris Vallejo, then you can draw whatever you want and people will buy it from you. Simple as that.
And it all depends on the context, which is why I like it better as a commercial issue as opposed to politics.
No, yeah, right. And
politically, people are what they are. There's very little persuasion anybody can do.
But I think we have to look at we have to at least acknowledge that there is a current in the industry right now that makes this a little touchier than it might be otherwise. There's been some bullshit going on in the industry, and it makes it a little touchier. Just like you don't make plane crash jokes after until a long time after the last plane crash.
Well, as much as I personally, can be perturbed by what you're referring to, this is how we get better. This is the process we have to go through to get better, and we all want to get better.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to be a better writer every time, and that's why we're friends. We can disagree, we can have divergent viewpoints, but we still remain buddies, and we still.
Where were we disagreeing just then?
Well, we each have a different viewpoint on this, and that's fine. But that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Well, right.
That's
like actually the whole point. The divergent perspectives is a strength, not a weakness.
Well, granted, I'm trying to give a perspective that maybe aspiring artists should study their market better.
Absolutely. See, we agree.
Okay, there we go. See, look at that. That was easy. Do we have anything else we wanted to talk about?
When I walked in the door, you had like 20 things.
Well,
we can't be out already.
Yeah, I think we are. Well, I had all these things because the
you were going to answer questions, but you already did that, right?
Yeah. Well, that was what we started with. I didn't get to me. By the way, if you don't leave comments, then I got nothing to talk about next week, and then I might have to have him on again or somebody else.
I'm pretty sure this one is going to get you comments.
I hope so. Back to that point, we should expect a certain amount of philosophical and intellectual turmoil in our game because we can't define common words the same way. Someone gave me the exact definition out of the book that Gary wrote, and all the other 52 varied off of that. Well, except for Jen. The other 51 others, at least 50 others varied from that. So, it's fun. And this is what makes every campaign a little different, no matter how stringently you say you play a certain edition. Because as humans, we see things differently. We define the same words differently. The same words mean different things to each of us. You say a demi-human, and I have a different image pop into my mind, whatever my prevalent demi-human image might be. You have a different one. I'll bet he does too.
Oh, no, I'm pretty laid back about it. Whatever game system I'm playing, it's whatever those rules say. And but to your point, I grew up in the do-it-yourself days because there wasn't that, there weren't gazetteers and hardly any modules. So, like something like Mutant Crawl Classics, I just either steal it or make it up.
Well, that's the mark of the old school. Steal it, buff it off, brush it off a little bit, and then use it. That's the way we made all our dungeons.
Great artists, good artists copy, great artists steal.
I've heard that said about writers as well. I think that's it. I need comments to comment on next time. And I believe that covers it all. So let's see. I need a new foreign language word that says goodbye. I've been running through all the ones I know.
Wiedersehen, au revoir, adios.
Yeah, I've hit those.
Seems like I should know the Russian word, but I don't.
Oh, well. How about goodbye? See you next time.